Let's take a look at the single most important tool to handle objects, the Object Selection tool. This tool will allow you to make all sorts of operations on objects, ranging from simple transformations to adjusting important properties. The Object Selection tool is one of the most important tools in the program, so you need to know it by heart. With the Object Selection tool selected, it's possible to select an object by clicking or by dragging a rectangle around it. Notice that the rectangle must encompass the entire object, otherwise it won't select it. If you want to select multiple objects, just hold Shift and click on another one, or simply drag a rectangle that fits them all. You can move an object by clicking on top and dragging. If you have multiple objects selected, then you can move them all by clicking on one and dragging. Okay, here are a couple of nice shortcuts to know. To constrain an object in the X or Y axis, hold Ctrl and drag vertically or horizontally. It's possible also to move the object with the arrow keys in the keyboard. This will move an object just a bit. This is great to make some minor adjustments. However, if you need, by holding Shift, the object will move in a greater quantity. It's very common that you may want to select an object that's obscured almost completely by another. You can select an object directly below a selected one by holding the Alt key and clicking where it should be. Or even better, move the mouse to the top of the stacked objects, hold Alt, and use the mouse wheel to highlight the object. I'm sure you noticed the black arrows that appears with the dot rectangle that indicates the selected objects. By using any of the arrows, you can scale the object in any of the direction of the selected arrow. The scaling is done from the opposite side. You can tell by the little cross. If you click again on an already selected object, you toggle the rotate and skew controls. No matter from which arrow you grab, all rotating and skewing is pivoted from the center point. Again, where the little white cross is. But this time you can click on it and change its position, and this will change the pivot point for both rotating and skewing. All new objects will have the little cross at the center, but if you change its position they will remember it. All object manipulations work with multiple objects selected as well, and they behave exactly the same. You can even change the position of the pivot as if it were a single object. Right now, it's a good moment to show you a couple of the most important shortcuts related to handling objects. You already saw that by holding Ctrl you can constrain the movement to an axis. But you can also make the scaling of an object uniform. This is useful for maintaining the proportions when scaling with the black arrows. If on the other hand you are rotating or skewing, holding Ctrl will snap the transformation to a fixed angle. This is most useful with the rotation, since it will snap to common angles like 45 degrees or 90 or so. Then is the Shift key. When scaling, this will automatically change the scaling point to the center, rather than the opposite side of the selected arrow. And if you are using it to rotate or skew, then it will move the pivot point to the opposite side rather than the center. So the Shift key kinda inverts the pivot point position from center to corner. And of course you can use both Ctrl and Shift together. This will do the two actions at the same time. An important detail is that all these shortcuts work when you are creating built-in shapes. So you can easily drag perfect circles with the ellipse tool if you hold Ctrl, or draw a rectangle from the center if you hold Shift, or create squares from the center if you hold both at the same time. In the tool controls, there are a few important options you need to know. The first group has a few unimportant selection options that we can skip. More important is the rotate and flip commands. The rotate will allow you to rotate an object 90 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise, and the flip will invert the object either horizontally or vertically. Also, the H and B shortcuts are nice and easy to remember. Next is the object order buttons. In Inkscape, all objects have a stacking order, which dictates which object is on top. Every new object is created automatically on top of the stack, since all illustrations are created by stacking one object on top of another. You have to be able to move objects up and down so they are in the correct order. So changing the object stack order is extremely important, and you'll be using these operations all the time, even for the simplest illustrations. With these buttons, you can send the selected object to the bottom, to the top, or move it a single object up or down. The next group of options are there so you can control the position and scaling with numerical accuracy. Unless you're creating some kind of document where you know the exact position where you want things to be in, you can safely skip this section. These final four buttons are shortcuts to enable and disable a few important options regarding object transformations. You can access these options in the transform preferences, but here you can quickly enable and disable an option in a second. They basically handle the behavior of a few properties of the objects when making transformations. For example, whether the stroke scales with the object or not, or if the gradient moves as you move the object. I recommend you to leave these four buttons enabled.